How can you use native visuals in Power BI to create standout KPIs, both in terms of its content, function, and the way it looks? Maybe something like this donut, or this bar chart, or some of the variations. Now, creating these is not necessarily a straightforward process, and a few lesser known hacks or workarounds are needed. But once you do it for yourself, you open up so many possibilities that you can apply every day in your work. So stick around and I'll walk you through each step to formulate how to bring context to the fore of your KPI, plan and create the measures needed, and then finally build it. And once it is built, we'll look at some cool variations that will give you ideas on how to apply your very own customization. Hi, if this is the first time tuning into one of my videos, my name is Jared, and I'm going to share with you my process and creative ideas on making an effective KPI card in Power BI, and the process of setting up the building blocks and putting it all together. If this video helps you, don't forget to drop a like, a comment, and even subscribe so that you get notified of my future videos coming up. Okay, before I jump directly into making this, I wanted to briefly explain my process for creating the building blocks for this type of KPI. Now, for a KPI, we want to measure something specifically, like a revenue, but that's not enough on its own. We need to benchmark it against something to provide context in order to give it real meaning. But what does that mean? Well, for this scenario, I'm looking at the monthly sales revenue for a group of 9 employees. And if my KPI simply says someone is earning $10,000 this month in revenue, what does that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Well, to be honest, I don't know, because there's no context. So how do we add context? In this case, we're looking at an individual performance for a given month. So to provide context, we could see how that person is performing against something like a target revenue set by the company. Are they meeting the target? Are they exceeding it? Or are they falling short? We could look at a comparison against the rest of the group of the employees. Where do they rank? Are they number 1? Are they number 9? Or are they somewhere in between? We could even do a comparison against the top performing employee. Are they themselves a top employee? Or how far are they behind in terms of either dollar revenue or a percentage value? And we could even take it one step further and look at comparisons with previous time periods. Are they performing better or worse over time? If we show some of these items, we now have that context that will answer the so what that management want to know, and which may allow a decision or an action to be taken. This is exactly what people are talking about when they refer to the data buzzwords of data-driven insights or actionable data. It's simply performance with context or benchmarking set against it. A quick example, if you review the KPI and most people are missing the target, is there something wrong? Is the target unrealistic? Or is there some underlying performance issue? On the other hand, is someone smashing the targets consistently? That's great. You can maybe think, what can we learn from the way this person works and apply those lessons to the team? Or you could even recognize that person with an award or a promotion. So these are the examples of actions and insights that you want to gain from your KPI. Okay, let's get down to it. As always, if you want to follow along with this, you can download my blank model file. There will be a link in the description below of the Northwind Trader dataset. So if we look at what I'm going to go through today, a bit of a to-do list. I'm going to review the context of what we want to explore in our KPIs. Then for our calculations, put together a bit of a plan, then execute and validate them. So we're going to look at our revenue, ranking, maximum, target revenue, and then various percentages. Then we're going to look at the titles and subtitles for our KPIs and how we formulate those and apply them. And then there's a bit of a special one, maybe a lesser known aspect of performing a color formatting hack on a donut chart or a stacked bar chart. And then finally, we'll jump in to build those visuals. Okay, in terms of looking at the context, if we look at this donut KPI, so donut chart that we have in the bottom left hand here, we have the net order revenue, and then it looks like this is showing a percentage of maybe a maximum, but this on its own doesn't really tell me an awful lot of information. I'm maybe guessing about what this actually means. So what we want to do is actually provide some context as to what this value, $21,540 means. And we can do that by providing some additional information. So what I'm thinking, maybe we've discussed previously, is if we have maybe highlighting the person's name, like here we got Janet Leverling, and if we want to look at the ranking, so out of 9 employees, where do they rank? So here she's number 2, and then this is providing a percentage of the maximum. So you want to see this is a 93.1% of the maximum revenue. So someone has obviously got much, or not much more than her, but some more revenue than her. So she has gained 93% of that maximum revenue. And then if we are looking at a target revenue, so here we got maybe a target monthly revenue of $15,000. She is actually 43% or 43.6% above the target revenue. So just looking at the 21,000, we have this additional information that provides more context that we can then make a bit of a decision about whether this is a good performance. That coupled with sort of maybe some conditional color formatting that we have here, that provides that additional level of information that enables someone to sort of draw a conclusion as to whether this is good performance, average performance, or poor performance previously. So what I want to do is then just jump directly into Power BI itself. So I've actually just copied the calculations that we want in here just as a bit of a guide. And what I will do first is drop in a table down here so we can populate it as we go. And what I want is the employees first. So if I go to employees and employee name, we'll drop this in here first. And what I also want are some slicers. So I want slicers for the employee name as well. And also another slicer for some dates or date ranges. So we go to the date table, and what I want is the year and the end of month. So we'll put it on the same. We'll put it on the same here. And what I'll maybe do for this is just take off the blanks. Okay, so we should be in a position to start our calculations. So first calculation is the trusty old net order revenue. And that equals sum x of our order details. And it's the unit price times the quantity times 1 minus the discount. And that's probably disappeared somewhere in here. It's probably in my date table hanging around here, yeah. So I'll move that up to my measures. And then what we want to do is drop it in here. Now it is selecting, it's calculating it for everything. And what I actually want to do here is adjust the interactions. So I don't want this employee name to interfere with here. So I'm just going to turn that off. But if I want to look at a particular month, like March 15, so this will now tell me the net order revenue for each employee for a particular month. So that's my first step. Now next, what I want to do, if I select there and go new measure, I want to rank the employees by their net order revenue for the selected period. All right, so we're going to go rank employee revenue, and we're going to use a rank X function, and we're going to apply this against all the employees and employee names. So you want to consider all of the employees, and we want to rank against the expression. So the expression is the net order revenue. We don't want the value, but we want the order. So you want it in descending order. And we'll go dense. All right, so we got rank employee. Now if I drop that in here and I put it in from 1 down to the bottom, actually maybe the net order revenue, I'll make this to 2 decimal places so it looks a bit better. Okay, so you see the rank employee, so you got employee number 1, the highest revenue, Nancy, so number 1, so we got rank from 1 to 9, so that's working. Okay, so we've got our net order revenue, we've got our ranking of our net order revenue done. So next we want the maximum employee revenue. So effectively I want to return Nancy's revenue, which is the maximum revenue, against every employee. So it means that when I divide the net order revenue by the maximum, then I get whatever this is as a percentage of the maximum, but I need to be able to have all of these showing on the same column. So to do that, we will calculate max employee revenue. Again, we use a iterator function, so we want the max, and again we want to use all employees. So effectively we want to use the employees table, but we want to remove the filter context of the employees themselves, so that we always get the maximum revenue. I drop that in, and there you go. So again, if we look at that, so we have iterated across all of the employees and removed the filter context of the employee themselves, and calculated what is the maximum net order revenue, and it's 24,000, and it's always 24,000. So even when it was looking at Laura's, it's gone through all of the rows within the table and returned who's got the maximum net order revenue. So we're always getting the maximum here. Though it's not mentioned in here, I want one additional measure, and this is regarding the number of selected months. So in this case, we're looking at one individual month, but if I wanted to look at like the first quarter, whether it was January, February, March 2015, I want to be able to count the number of months that is, and you'll see why in a minute when I'm looking at targets, like a monthly target. If we want to roll that up into a quarter, obviously it's going to multiply the monthly target by 3, so we need to be able to calculate what that number is. So what I want is a count rows function on my date table, and what I want there is all selected, so whatever I'm selecting, and if we want both the year and the end of month. So if we go date near the end, year, and then we want another column which is the end of month, and we hit return there. I can drop this in just so you see what it does, but I think if I select 2 months, February and March, you'll see what is the maximum or the net order revenue for those 2 months, and you get the ranking and you get the max employee. But now it's telling me that I've selected 2 months, so I want to be able to know what that number is, whether I'm selecting one or all months, which is 25. Okay, so next I'm going to look at the target revenue itself. So you could hard code this target revenue if you wanted to set it at $20,000 a month, or 15,000 or 12,000. But what I'm thinking is you might want something a bit more dynamic. So you can either, I'll just opt for a parameter. So if I go for numeric range, I can call this the KPI target month revenue. I want a whole number. Minimum number is 10,000. Maximum is 25,000. Increment is say 1,000. What do I want? A whole number, fixed decimal number, which means it'll be currency, and the default of, doesn't really matter, but we'll put in 10,000. So if I say add a slasher to this page, also create. Okay, so it's going to give me that. I can go single value. Yeah, so I can say, let's say, for some reason it won't populate it, but 12,000, something like that. Make this a bit smaller and put it in here. Now if I go to the table itself, I can drop that value in here. And if I want to calculate the actual target revenue, so if I go target revenue, and what I want is the target month revenue multiplied by the number of selected months. Yes, so that's it. And if I drop that in here, oh, make this a bit bigger. I drop it in here. If I've selected those 3 months, what it's showing me here is the maximum, or the revenue, maximum, ranking, number of months selected, what is the monthly target revenue, and then the actual target revenue, because it's considering 3 months, so it's 36,000. Okay, so if I, we can start moving on to creating some of these percentages. What I'll do is actually maybe just take some of these out, the number of selected months and the actual individual. Okay, now I'll just look at 1 month here. So next, what I want to look at is what is the net order revenue as a percentage of the maximum. So we want the revenue percentage of the maximum, which is simply dividing the net order revenue by the max employee revenue. And that's disappeared somewhere again, is it? Yeah. Put that in the measures, make it a percentage. So if I drop it in there, you'll see number 1 is 100%, obviously, and we go down to number 9, which is 9%. So we want to calculate, we're calculating the revenue as a percentage of the maximum. And then next, what I want to do is calculate the revenue as a percentage of the target. So it's very similar. I can actually even just take, copy and paste. So revenue percentage of the target is the net order revenue divided by the target revenue. Again, we drop it in here. So you'll see if this is 24,000 and the target is only 12,000, obviously it's almost twice as big as the target, so you're getting 200%. So you're like 106% over the target revenue. Now next we want to calculate the actual KPI percentage, which is like the colored bar of the KPI. And there's a bit of a nuance here because the 100% of the, let's say the donut or the stacked,
is going to be a maximum value. Now that maximum value could be the maximum employee value. So here is 24,000. But what if the target is actually 25,000? Then the max employee revenue is not 100% because it's below the target. So then the target becomes the maximum. So because we've got this dynamic target, and there's a fact that either the target could be the maximum for a particular person or a particular month, or the maximum revenue from an employee could be the maximum. We have to take that into account in our calculations. That might sound a little bit confusing, but hopefully as we work through it, you'll see what I mean. So to calculate that sort of color bar for the KPI, I want to have a measure called KPI value, or sorry, KPI score percentage, sorry. I want to create two variables. So we got those two scenarios, one where the maximum employee value is the highest, and the other is where the target is the highest. So a variable max high is equal to the revenue percentage of the maximum, and the variable of target high is equal to the rev of the percentage of the target. Now what I want to return is if the maximum employee revenue is greater than the target revenue, then I want to return the maximum, I want to return the max high variable, which is the revenue percentage of the maximum. But if it's not, then I want to return the target. And it's as simple as that. So it's just those two scenarios. If one's higher, we choose that. If the maximum employee is higher, we choose the maximum employee value. If the target is the highest, then we choose the target as the highest value. So now we want the balance. So if that is, let's see, where have I put that? So our KPI score, if I drop that in here and make it a percentage. So the target value, because the target is the highest, is higher than the maximum employee, and the KPI score is equal to the revenue percentage as the target. But if I drop the target value down to like 18,000, you'll see that the maximum employee revenue is 100%, so the KPI score becomes 100%. So it swaps over depending on which is the maximum. Okay, so what we want then is the balance. So if we have our KPI donut that has the color bar, and then we have that sort of light gray, we want to calculate the light gray. So it's just going to be the balance of 100%. So it's simply, I'll call it something simple like 1 minus the KPI score. And it is literally the same as the title. Again, make it the percentage. Drop it again. So yep, so these two values should add up to 100%. And in terms of the main calculations, I have one more to do here. So as part of the context, I want to be able to tell what the target revenue is as a percentage of the maximum revenue. So then I can put in a bit more context. So again, it's just another percentage calculation. So we want the target value as a percentage of the maximum, and that is divide maximum employee revenue. Push it to the measures, make it a percentage. Okay, so in theory, I can start building my KPIs. So if I drop a donut chart in here and I get my KPI score in the values and my 1 minus KPI score. So if I select, I'll make this a single select, it's always easier. So I only want to be able to select one person at a time. Now if I want to look at the color conditional formatting, if I go to this, there is no color conditional formatting. So I can select this as light gray. But what if this is, let's say we'll pick someone low down, Steve Buchanan. It's still a green color. I want to be able to highlight this as maybe a red or an orange or something to show that it's a low value, not just the same color. So if I want to do that, it's not actually possible here. There's no way of formatting it within here. So what do? Because this is the same for anything where it's a part to the whole. If I take a stacked bar chart, it's exactly the same. There's no way to format this. So we need to think up of some other way to do it. So luckily I've got a bit of a hack that can force this coloring, but it's within banded ranges. So how do we do that? We need to write a couple of DAX formulas. And in essence, it's a formula per band. I'll show you what I mean now. So if I have a band score for the lower red value, shall we call it? Red lower. What I need to do is set a series of variables. So our first variable is the target score. So our target score is the target as a percentage of the maximum. And we want a lower target. So a lower band target. So the lower target is equal to 40% of that target. So 0.4 times the target S. And we want a mid target. So mid target is equal to 0.8 times the target. Again, you'll see in a minute how this works. And then the upper target is equal to 1.1, so it's 110% of the target. So those are variables, and this, the thing about it, I've written all the variables out here. I don't need them all for each calculation, but it's easier just to write them all out once, and then you can copy and paste. So if I return, so what I want to return here. So if I want to say if the revenue as a percentage of the maximum is less than the lower target, then I want to return the revenue as a percentage of the maximum. Otherwise, return 0. So what does that mean? So here, for instance, the revenue percentage of the maximum, anyone who is less than the lower target, then we return that, otherwise it's 0. So if I return this and I drop that in here and I quickly change this to a percentage, So you'll see here where the KPI score is less, then it's going to highlight these ones, and everything above that is going to be highlighted or kept as a 0. So only when it meets this condition will you get a value returned. Now I can copy this, and we have to create a few more of these. So yellow, mid, we keep this the same. So for this we want, if it's less than the mid target, and the percentage of the maximum is greater or equal to the lower target, then return the revenue maximum. So again, drop the percentage. We can drop this in here again, so you got 0 here, and then when it comes to this point, then you return these two values will be yellow, these values will be red. And I think you might see the sort of pattern here. What am I doing? No, don't need a text box. Another measure. So we want our green target. Green. Green high. And what we want to say here is if it's less than the upper target, which is 110%, and rev max is greater or equal to the mid target, then return that again. Green, change the percentage. So it's just showing that, and then final one for that sort of upper. So deep green upper. So if it is greater than or equal to upper target, drop that in as kind of the last one, convert it to percentage again. So effectively you're seeing red, yellow, green, deep green. Okay, so those are the calculations that we needed to do to provide this kind of workaround or a hack to provide a color-coded donut chart. So what do we actually do here? This KPI score actually becomes redundant. So we move that, we put in our red, then we put in our yellow, then the green, then the deep green. This is colored these here, but what we can actually do then is go to the slices. You got red lower, is that yellow, green, deep green, and the gray. So what you'll see now is as I go up, look at Nancy who's top, look at red, so you get this color formatting of the donut itself by utilizing these values. So for Andrew down here, if we look across, is 56.14% is his value. It's there, 56. So that's basically the hack that we can use, and we can apply the same to the stacked bar chart as well. Now, just to tidy this up a little bit, I can get rid of the legends. I don't want the labels and the spacing here. I think that the donuts are too sort of thick, so I always like to have it a bit thinner. And that'll kind of set us up initially. And then what we want to work on next is providing the titles and the subtitles to bring in that additional context. Okay, so as I say, we'll move on to creating some context. So we'll start off with our title. So I create a new measure. And if you've seen some of my previous videos or anything where we've created titles, you'll know that a title, if we're using a title, it needs to be formatted as text. The titles won't accept like number formats. So you need a format. And then what I want to do, as I've shown previously, is have the person's name. So the selected value. So whatever the selected value is for the employee name. So employee. So from the employee's employee name. So we want to show that, number one. And we show that as just text. And then we use an and to concatenate. And if you want like a bit of a pipe between the name and a rank, so then next we want to and now what I have is just a bit of a text that says rank colon and then a pound slash for the number. And then we want to end, and then format. We want to format the rank employee revenue. So where we've calculated the rank here. So we want the rank employee revenue, and we just want that formatted like that. So if I just quickly jump into the title. You can write title here, title KPI. And you'll see now, so we've got Andrew Fuller. Andrew Fuller is number 4. So we've got Andrew Fuller, rank number 4 in there. All right, we can format a lot of this sort of stuff later. So what I want to do now is move on to a subtitle. So our subtitle, I'm going to create 2 different types of subtitles. One is a multi-line and one is a single line. And there's advantages and disadvantages of both. Multi-line. So what you want is you want a variable for the target revenue. All right. And we're going to return. So if the net order revenue is less than the target revenue, I want to format it in a particular way. So what I want to do is format the revenue as a percentage of the maximum. And I want to format that as a percentage. So you get 0.0%. And then I want off, so you provide that sort of text of the maximum revenue. So I want to return a value so that whatever the percentage is of the maximum revenue. And if I want to introduce a new line, I need to introduce a unique R10, and that will return me on to the next line. So it provides me multi-line text. And then I want to format 1 minus the revenue of the percentage of the target as a percentage value as well. And now I want to introduce a symbol. If you want to introduce a symbol, you can hit Windows full stop, and it will bring you somewhere like here. What I want is a lower triangle, like this. So that if the net order revenue is less than the target revenue, it's going to return this value, and it's going to tell me how many percentage points lower than the target revenue it is. So it's 1 minus the percentage of the target. But if it's the net order revenue is above the target revenue, I want it to return a different value. That's going to be very similar to this. So the top line is going to be the same, but this is going to be, if it's above, it'll be the revenue percentage of the target minus 1. And this will be replaced by the triangle that looks upwards. Where is it? Did I pass it somewhere? There you go. All right. So it's probably going to be easier to show the result. So if I go here to the title and turn on the subtitle, okay. So if I look at, where's my subtitle? So in this instance, the net order revenue, my net order revenue for Andrew is, where is he? He's $13,000, so it's less than the target revenue, so it's less than $18,000. So it satisfies this upper limit. So we're formatting the revenue percentage of the maximum. So it's 56% of the maximum. So this value is 56% of the maximum value. So that's what it's returning there as a percentage of the max. So it's saying 56% of the maximum revenue. And then unitar 10, it pushes me on to the next line down, and it says format 1 minus the revenue percentage of the target less than the target revenue. So it's saying Andrew here, it is 22.6% less than the target revenue. So the target revenue is probably somewhere in here. It's around about 72%, somewhere like that. So 72% minus 22, give me that 56. So we're less than the target revenue. Unfortunately, in a donut, it would be nice if we could introduce a bit of a target line here, and then this would be a bit more clear. At the minute, it's probably not the cleanest or the clearest, but the stacked bar chart is actually good at this because you can introduce these types of lines. Now, if I pick, let's say, Laura, again, if I relook at the subtitle, because her net order revenue, Laura, she got $20,000, which is greater than the target of 18,000. She satisfies condition number 2. So she's still not 100% of the maximum revenue. She's 83.5%, but she is greater than the target revenue. She's 15% over the target revenue. So her value is 15% greater than that. So that's kind of what that's showing. And if I pick Nancy, you get 100% the maximum revenue, 37% greater than the target revenue. Now there are limitations to using this multi-line text that I sort of highlighted previously. So I'll show you what they are. If you like to include a divider between the title and the chart, if you put it in here, the line always sort of runs across this, so you can't really use a divider. So that's kind of out of the question. And again, for the title, if you want a background color, so if I wanted to apply some kind of background color, I can pick anything here. Again, it goes down to where the divider would sit. So this text kind of overlaps it and it doesn't look good. So if you want to use multi-line text, you can't really take advantage of that additional formatting that's available within the title block. Now to get over that, I can use a single line subtitle. So effectively what I can do is just create a new measure. And call it single line. And what we do is we take out the unichar or unicar and we replace it with a pipe in both instances. If I hit return there, and just replace formatting with subtitle, go single line. So we have that showing 100% maximum, and what I was showing you before, you can include that if I wanted to put in a background, something like that. If I wanted to have something like that, it sort of maybe stands out a bit nicer. Maybe you like that type of heading. Then you might want to just look at providing this sort of single line subtitle. Okay, the final step is to actually build these visuals out properly, and to help me do that, I want to be able to color format some of the text and borders and things like that. So I need one color formatting measure. So KPI score, color format. What I actually want to do here, did that go away somewhere? I want to get one of the band scorings, copy this. I want to use these variables, but I want the D ref. Okay. So I'm going to use a switch true. I use a switch true function. So if the score is less than the lower target, then I want to return that red color, which I have is C73D40. If the score is less than the mid target, oops, sorry, score D, then I want to return a yellowy type color that I've used. F2BE22. If it's less than the upper, target, I want to return that sort of yellowy color. A 7878, and if the score is greater than or equal to the upper target, then I want to return that sort of deep green color. 224 A59, and that's my color format. Okay, I'll delete this one first. All right, so I want to go to work on this to build out the KPI card itself. So I want to go to formatting, but sorry, before I do that, I forgot one important step. I haven't actually got the value in here. So I want to drop in the net order value first. So unfortunately we can't include this as like just a single visual. We need to have something sort of sitting on top of it with this net order value, but that's fine. We can work with it this way. All right. So if I go to size and style, in terms of the size, what I want to have is 410. Now you can make this smaller. I'm making it large-ish just for the sake of this tutorial, so you can actually see it on the page, but you can always reduce the size as you need to. Okay, so if we go 410 and I go for padding, I want to have a bit more padding on here, so I go 5, padding in on the right and the left, and background, I'll put a white background in here for the time being. On a border, and then what I want to use is my color format. So my color format will match that, and maybe put a little bit of rounding on it. Okay, I'll actually set this outside for the time being while I'm working on it. So that's the size. You can put in shadow if you want. What I like to do is, if I do put it in the center, maybe make it a little bit less prominent, maybe something like that. Some people don't like shadow, so it's up to you whether you want to keep it or not. In terms of the title, we want the background color. So again, for this, sorry, color format. So we got that color sitting in there like that. I want to make the title a little bit more prominent, 18, subtitle maybe a little bit larger too, 12, and divider is fine. I'll ignore that. I want to modify the sort of spacing that we have here. So I'll maybe take this up to somewhere like maybe slightly less than that, space below the subtitle. I want 10, so a bit more space below that. And that's fine. So if I look at a few different people, yeah, so the color formatting is kind of working for me here. All right. I just noticed that the color I've chosen for this slice doesn't quite match. I think it's this green. Yeah, it's that green, sorry. Okay, so next I'll move on to the card visual itself. I'm going to make this slightly different, maybe 7.5. I'm going to reduce the padding. On this, shape rectangle, call out, I'll bring this down to 24, middle, 10, center, baseline, spacing, 4. Turn off the fill, turn off the border, put the accent bar on, and the color to align with our color format. And we want to keep it on, for this instance we'll have it on the bottom. Group them together so they kind of group, so if we move it about it sort of stays. Again, if we change time periods, it all changes. So that's kind of working, or it's very similar to what I had previously. If I want to look at sort of variations of this, I could have this. What I can do is copy, paste it, sort of sitting here. Let me see, for this, for the title, keep the title as is, I can remove the background color, have it change the text color to field value. Not the color one, so this is the subtitle. And the subtitle text color. Needs to follow the color formatting. If you want this to be quite clean, you could remove. You could think about removing the shadow. If I want to make this slightly bigger, let me just for the sake of showing these on a single page. Again, if I want to make this multi-line text, I come into the title, I get rid of the divider. So that's kind of 3 different versions. You can have one a bit more fancy with the background and the title, one a bit more minimalist with single line text, and then another one with multi-line text. You can apply other things like maybe backgrounds. So you can maybe create something like this, there's a shape in the background. You could create this in PowerPoint or something, or within here. So what I've got here is size 450 by 435. Run the rectangle, sort of smaller-ish corners to try and match that. So 7% here. The border, I've matched the color, and maybe just a little bit of glow as well on it. So that just gives us this type of background. If I push this to the back, what you can kind of do is get this kind of effect where it sort of sits in the back. Now, whether you like this or not, again, it's up to you. Again, you can even, I didn't do this in the original, but yeah, you could do something like this. Let me just push this to the back again. So it gives you this type of effect. It's like maybe like a double border. Again, personal preferences and things like that. What I would caution against maybe is just doing sort of too much of this, where kind of the borders and the titles and things kind of distract from what you're actually trying to show. So it's nice to have these types of sort of aesthetics and they make it look nice, but don't focus purely on the aesthetics to the detriment of what you're actually trying to show. And I almost forgot to show what you can do is if you want to drop in this as well, you can format this in a way that gives you like a two-layer, one with the net order and then the subtitle with those percentages sitting below it. But you need to sort of reformat the size on this one. You can almost swap this out for something like this. You might need to slightly readjust the sizing and some of the padding and things like that and remove the subtitle there, but yeah, you can effectively do that. So next I'll briefly look at the stacked bar chart KPI and how we can use that. So if I make a little room here, we don't really need this table so much anymore. I can copy one of these down here. We'll see if this works or not. It may not work. Yeah, it's kind of worked. It's kind of what we're looking for. So what I want is the stacked bar chart, so it goes up to 100%. So what we just need to do is do a couple of quick modifications on here. So we have effectively got the same sort of title and subtitle in here. What we want to do is get rid of these scores, or things that are in the scores. So we get rid of the y-axis and the y-axis title. In terms of the x-axis, I want to get rid of the title. And before I do anything else, I'll just show you again, the bars are exactly the same. So it's the same sort of setup where you apply the band scores in here. So it's just exactly the same as the donut chart. You'll see one good advantage of the stack bar chart is it takes up a lot less space, but we'll kind of work on that to make it even a bit more efficient. But one of the key hacks here, I know if you've seen my other versions here, we have this little revenue value here and here, and we managed to push this off to the side. So there's a bit of a hack that we can make this happen. So if I go back to my working file, if I go to the x-axis, because this is 100% stacked, it's also always going to be from 0 to 100, so we don't need to worry too much about the maximum values. But what I can do here is say I want a space off to the left here, and maybe on the right hand side we want something that's a bit like that. Now if I turn the X off there, it's starting to look a bit better. If I go to the bars and go to the spacing, what I want to do is reduce this down to 0. It gives me quite a thicker chart, so I can sort of adjust the sizing to make this sort of slightly smaller. Let's see what size we got here. Right. So if I re-look at some of the padding here, let's see, put in 10 here. Push that off to the right. If I look at the title and spacing, maybe slightly maybe something like that. And then what I want to introduce here are reference lines. Close these. So I want to add 2 lines. One's a constant line, and its value is 1. And it's the max. I want it to be a solid line in front, sort of grayish, be slightly more prominent, something like that. And I want a data label on the reference line. Just want the name, and I want it under and to the left, so that's our max. And then I want another line which will be called the target, constant line. And this will be the target percentage of the maximum. Again, solid. And gray 20. And we want the data label. Name under. So effectively, we have our target value and our max value 100%. And what I just want to have here is a smaller version of this. So I can reduce this down maybe to something like 18. I can push it off to the side, and for this, make it to the left. So you can work at the formatting of this, or the layout, if it's too big or small, to make it sort of sit in there. And you know, if I choose someone else, again, you get this net order revenue. This changes with the target. I go into March, so it's fully dynamic. And again, you can adjust the formatting again to introduce this type of single row text on the subtitle, background colors, etc. So you can pretty much do whatever you want in that respect. And again, you can come up with something sort of very similar to what we have, or what we're showing here, where you have multiple variations of a KPI, where you have the name of the person, the rank, and you have additional levels of context. You have a measure, and as I said, with the bar chart, you have probably the advantage of it being slightly smaller, so you can probably fit 1 or 2 of these in, whereas these donuts tend to take up a bit more real estate. And the bar charts also provide that added functionality of providing these sort of target and maximum lines, so you can kind of see where you are in terms of what your score is, whereas in a donut it is slightly harder to see where you are.
So thanks for watching. If you find this content useful, drop me a like. If you have any other content that you would like me to explore, let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you hit subscribe, you'll stay up to date with all of my latest videos coming up in the near future.